There we go. Yeah, so I'm Jules. I'm also a parish councillor in a small village and hamlet in North Suffolk, in the district of West Suffolk, called Hopton cum Nettishall. So also a parish councillor and a founder of a community benefit society in Suffolk called iFarm. It's Ikigai Farm Limited, which I'll talk a little bit about in the presentation. And primarily, what I'm engaged with now is community climate action planning. And again, you'll hear more about that in the presentation. But should we do a quick whip round of introductions? So, who would like to start? And it's probably best if whoever starts and then you pass it on. So you pass it on and call out somebody's name.
Well, shall we start? I mean, I think you all know Rachel as chair of Western Turble Parish Council. I straddle two local climate action groups in Western Turble and Wendover. And I'll suggest Paul Mooring next.
Hello, everybody. Paul Mooring, as David said, Climate Action Wendover. I'm going to call Louise.
Hi, Paul. Good to see you. Louise Hayday, Town Clerk, Cheshire Town Council. I'll call who's next on my screen. Jules. We've already done you. Rob Topless.
Hi, I'm Climate Action Wendover, one of the founding trustees. I'd like to call Clive Gallagher.
Okay, I'm Clive Gallagher. I'm the chair of Wendover Parish Council, and I will call the person next to me on my camera, Charlotte.
Hi there, I'm a resident of Western Turble. And I will call Hugo from Halton.
Hi, I'm Hugo, a parish councillor for Halton, and I'll call Paul Mooring, who's next to me.
I've already done mine.
Sarah Feeney?
Hi, I'm Sarah and I'm a councillor on the Bearton Parish Council in Aylesbury. Malcolm.
Hello, I'm Malcolm. I'm part of the Climate Action Western Turble. And I call anybody, but I can't see anybody at all.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Darren Smith. I'm Vice Chair of the Stoke Mandeville Parish Council. And I can't see anybody who hasn't already introduced themselves.
So just anyone dive in.
I'm in for Aston Clinton, Marion Mason, Aston Clinton, and my colleague David McCall, who can introduce himself.
David?
You're muted, David.
Oh, still can't hear you, unfortunately.
Shall I explain who he is?
Yes.
You can hear me okay. I'm the chair of Aston Clinton Parish Council. David McCall is the vice chair of Aston Clinton PC and the chair of facilities. And he does have a voice.
Cool. Nice to meet you, David. Who's next?
I'm Alistair Dunbar from Drayton Beecham Parish Meeting. Jane McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm Jane and I'm a resident of Aylesbury here out of interest. I don't hold any formal local position. And what about Sarah Copley?
I'm the clerk for Western Turble Parish Council. Francesca's here as well, so she probably introduced herself.
Hi, I'm here as well. I'm Sarah's assistant.
Fantastic. Who we've got a few left. Who hasn't been yet? And anyone else?
I do. Hi, I'm Fiona from Chesham, member of various environmental groups in Chesham, and she's Byron.
Hi.
Sorry, hang on. Susie Grundy.
Can you hear us, Susie? Got your mic turned off?
Yeah, I'm just an interested party. I'm a property developer and I've done a low energy rental home in Oxford, and I've come across all the different legislation, a lot of new technology. And to be honest, having done it and having been involved in environmentally friendly development work, I'm a little bit jaded about some of the technology. So I was talking to Rachel about it today. She said to come on this evening, and so I'm just an interested party.
Great. Who have we got left? Caroline, Sam, Steve. There's quite a lot of people actually. I'm surprised there's so many on the call, which is wonderful. But it does mean there's 2 pages on my screen, so I can't see everyone.
Okay, so I'll say I'm Surinder Marshall. I'm a parish councillor in Princess Risborough, as well as a member of Climate Action Now Risborough.
Great. Anyone else? Yeah, well, I've given it counted to 10. So anyone else burning to do an introduction before we start? Last call. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And what a great bunch. So I'm Joolz, as I say, I'm also a parish councillor. Pretty rural area where I am. But we also do community climate action planning in urban environments as well. And I'll kick off with a bit of a presentation. Hopefully it won't be too much deck by PowerPoint. Mostly pictures and storytelling. And it's probably going to be about 15-20 minutes and then an opportunity for Q&A. We can sort of have an open discussion. So bear with me a moment while I share my screen. So you should be able to see a sodden field.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've just had the wettest September ever again, certainly in the southeast, and our farmers are struggling to plant and harvest, which is of deep concern to anyone who likes. So this picture is actually from last year, and actually when we were just joining the call, there was a little bit of storytelling about wet weather and roads being blocked and the postie being very brave getting through, I think. And this is the kind of thing that we can expect to only get worse. So really, what we do with community climate action is start to talk about how you mitigate, or start to talk how we adapt to the change that is here. So the headline there is further wet weather raises fears of harvest catastrophe. And this was throughout the year last year. But then also this right now, farmers are having their seeds washed away. So our food security is threatened by extreme flooding and also extreme drought as well, which leads to empty shelves. I don't know if anyone remembers the great tomato shortage last year, where suddenly couldn't get tomatoes in the supermarkets because they were imported mostly from Morocco and from Spain, who were suffering the worst drought for 1,200 years. And we've all seen the pictures of the melting ice caps and droughts and the sudden wildfires. They're even taking lives and destroying property in the UK, and in particular, massive amounts of flooding. And we are passing the 1.5 degree upper limit. It says in the headline it's a target. I just want to reiterate or say 1.5 degrees isn't a target. It's the safe upper limit, and we're smashing through it as we speak. And most climate scientists expect us to realize a rise of at least 2.5 degrees, which is pretty cataclysmic. And the United Nations have declared code red for humanity. I'm just going to pause there a moment, let that sink in. Code red for humanity. So what can we do? Well, it's not bad news. So a major US state, that's California, have just hit a critical milestone for nearly 2 weeks. Now, this is quite old news, and actually they carried on for months. And if California can power themselves with renewables much larger than the UK, then we certainly can in the UK. We've got opportunities for community renewable energy, and we don't necessarily have to have solar farms that just blight the landscape and take away productive agricultural land. We can use agrivoltaics and have both. We can have horticultural production and energy generation. And with the new, our new executive, our new government, they've removed barriers to onshore wind, and there's thousands of sites, certainly in East Anglia, and I'm sure in Buckinghamshire as well, that would now be suitable for wind turbines and onshore wind. So today I'm going to talk about the Great Collaboration, which is council and community climate action. And generally, we work on 5 themes, though themes are more often than not decided by the communities themselves. And there are sometimes variation on theme, but there tends to be parity. So it's action on housing, food, transport, energy, and biodiversity. And the Great Collaboration is a ragtag group of individuals that have come together, including myself, and we are mostly made up of people that are our town or parish councillors, district councillors, or work for associations of local councils or the Society for Local Council Clerks. So Andrew, who you see there, is the Sustainability Advisor for SLCC. Claudine works for Warwickshire ALC. I think Graham's got 2 parish councils that he attends as a councillor. I'm not quite sure how he's managed that. And Belinda's a district councillor in the southwest. We've got a broader team of facilitators and coaches and tech people and what have you, but those are the steering group on our board on our committee. And the Great Collaboration is really about taking action. So what we know is that 80% of people don't think the government's doing enough on climate, and 60% of people want to take action but don't know what to do. And of course, we're faced generally with the top 10 things you can do about climate in The Guardian. You know, eat less meat, fly less, this kind of thing. But it's a bit like flicking a peanut at a rhino. And what we need to do is actually act in cohort. So our theory of change is, you know, as an individual, someone has moved to do something. They're part of that 60%. They're part of the climate majority. And they look for ideas, and they gain some skills, maybe in community climate action. And then it's really important to find the others. So part of what we do is actually build capacity in communities, and leaders tend to step forward, and I'm delighted to see so many on this call. So find others in our communities and collectively decide what we can do together. Measure the current state where we are, so we know what we can change and improve. Assemble knowledge, funds, and support to deliver. Take an action, measure the outcomes, and then share what they worked on and how, informing and inspiring others. So we create this virtual circle and this peer-to-peer network of learning with coaching, mentoring, and support. So we've got a website called The Great Collaboration. It's greatcollaboration.uk. We've got a forum where you can go on and talk to people in your community and others in the area. And we've got a whole bunch of very cool mapping tools that extend through planning community renewable energy, measuring and recording biodiversity, to things like EPCs. So on screen just there is a map of EPCs. So you can actually look at the EPCs in your local area and see which houses need retrofitting and which ones you get the biggest bang for your buck. What we're talking about today is facilitated workshops for community climate action planning, where we get together with our stakeholders and spend the day getting to know one another, and through a process of participatory activity and deliberative democracy, create a plan together that we can then go and enact. And this is just the start of something, start of a journey with the intention of decarbonising our respective communities and increasing biodiversity in the next 10 years. And we also partner with Climate Emergency Centres Network, who do place-based drop-ins for advice, and there's about 26 climate emergency centres around the UK. So the Great Collaboration is a place-based and community-focused activity, and we provide, as I've just shown, a website, forum and tools to support action. And we engage in community climate action planning. And to do that, as I'll show a little bit later, we've generally engaged with the associations of local councils. So where I am, that's Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, which is CAPALC, Norfolk Association, Suffolk Association, and Essex Association of Local Councils, really to make the activity grassroots, ground up. Then what makes our community? What other anchor institutions are there? Where is there a potential value proposition and an audience? So in particular, we work very closely with schools, pubs, sport clubs, and faith groups and residents and green groups. And we can provide place-based and pop-up climate emergency centres for face-to-face advice. So as I say, we've got a website. It's got lots of things you can do, make a pledge to do. We record those, and that data then can potentially inform councils in terms of how well they might be doing. There's information on buildings, energy, food and waste, and this is a work in progress. So we're improving it all of the time. And really looking at things like very simple things like community switching, getting together and moving to a green energy supplier, right through to quite large, well, very large scale community renewable energy projects. And that's described generally as an acronym called CLEP, which is Community Local Energy Planning. This is our forum. It's a bit like Facebook off Facebook. You create a news feed. You can put posts and you can put projects, events. It's got a members directory, and you can look at the map and see who's around you. And we're just loading on data from Friends of the Earth and Transitions Towns and other groups to get a sense of what groups are around in various areas. And in terms of the mapping bit, we've agreed to work with Parish Online. Some of you may be familiar with Parish Online because they primarily their customers are town and parish councils, and you can use their ordnance survey mapping data to help plan your environment, everything from ancient woodlands to EPCs. And we're loading on a bunch of data sets that let you see where you can put community renewable, where might be suitable for some agrivoltaics, or where you could possibly put a wind turbine. And it helps speed the process up, because what that means is you can download the planning constraints, for instance, for wind turbine, and do a bit of desktop feasibility study before progressing that activity. And here we can see a map of EPCs. So, we can see which ones are F, who might be particularly cold this winter. It's super important for us as representatives of our communities and our communities in terms of keeping people warm and saving them money on their bills. So we can also provide information and support on energy efficiency advice and how to set up a team of energy champions to actually go and talk to people who might want to learn more about energy efficiency. We also have a wiki, a bit of a database, so you can go on, click on energy efficiency and find all of the kind of handy hyperlinks and reference points and information. I don't know about you guys. When I started out, I probably have about 20 tabs open, and I have to try and so put them in a library somehow myself. So we started putting them into a wiki to make it easy access to find information, to take action. Things like We Want Wind, that's an application built by one of our open source developers, like I say, for siting a wind turbine, but also things like the Local Intelligence Hub, which just gives you data and demographic data and this kind of thing on your communities. That's generally helpful when you're going for things like bids or writing a bid in terms of demographics, who you're going to serve, what impact you're going to have, this kind of thing. And this slide is about the Are You Prepared for Net Zero Summit that Rachel mentioned she attended, and the reason I'm here. And my session on the SLCC was funding our future. So how we can access patient capital right now to help shape our environment. So it's super important. So I probably talk about lots of great ideas, and invariably people and our colleagues in our communities and our friends and our neighbours will also have great ideas, but fundamentally we need to be able to pay for it. So accessing that kind of patient capital is really, really important. So some of the associations of local councils we're working with on the screen. We've also got audience partners and content partners and service partners. So audience partners are, as I say, sport clubs, schools, pubs. So the Plunkett Foundation represents community pubs and businesses. Ministry for Eco-Education have a science-led curriculum, a STEM curriculum for climate science they deliver free to schools, and they have around 4,000 schools signed up. And Sport England are the representative body for around 150,000 sport clubs in the UK. Then we've got content from people like Carbon Copy and Climate Science Breakthrough, but also services. So people like LiftShare can assist with community transport surveys or transport surveys, and will provide a free service to town and parish councils. And Mother Tree is all about money switching. So I've just managed to convince my parish council that we should divest our reserves from Barclays to, we've actually now got a savings account in Nationwide, a much more environmentally friendly bank, because every pound emits a bit of carbon depending on where you put it. So make my money matter is another partner. And Barclays are the worst offender, having invested 160 billion in new fossil fuel exploration since the Paris Agreement. So Sport England and sport clubs are institutions that we really need to talk to, not just because of the clubs, not just because of the clubs themselves, which could generally do with some renewable energy and might be able to look at supply chain procurement and this kind of thing, but they are an anchor institution in our community and will have a variety of members as well. And as you can see on screen there, Hope United versus Despair Rovers. So rain stops play, very, very common thing. We're working with a variety of football clubs. One of them, I think, they've said their revenue has gone down by 50% because of the flooding in the last year, for instance. They just can't play football. Same with rugby clubs, and I'm working with the rugby club that I played a lot for, and I broke various bones with. So I'm working with Dis Rugby Club, and in particular rowing clubs and swimming clubs, because you can't dive in the water, you know, and you have to be very careful going rowing, even on the Cambridge-Oxford boat race. I mentioned the best way of saving the planet is moving your money. So that's a very quick win and something, you know, we can support and talk about. And there's much precedent with people like Waltham Forest divesting pensions and a bit of a zeitgeist in terms of moving money. So there's some very quick wins. LiftShare are a partner. They offer services, another service called Motability Ways, and they can do transport planning for larger institutions or community transport. So we're working with them where we are. We've just had our bus services cut quite dramatically because of lack of funding to and from our county council. So as a group of 11 parish councils, we're now coming together to actually figure out our own cooperative community transport to meet some of the requirements for our children getting to school, you know, older generation getting to the shops, and people getting to work. And we're really keen that that be sustainable. Our original funding came from the National Lottery when we kicked off and first did this where we are. And they said, well done. We massively over-delivered. And our journey's sort of gone on from there. And they funded us because it was replicable, scalable, and leads to So it's an holistic approach and comprehensive action on housing, food, transport, energy, and biodiversity. And my colleague, Professor Tim O'Riordan, who's chair of the Norfolk Association of Local Councils, said there's real scope for Norfolk AOC to learn the lessons being learned by community climate action in the forms of management, financing, recruitment, and the widespread improvement of local livelihoods. And this should be connected to county-based devolution at an early stage. And the great collaboration is funded. Our seed funding also comes from the Society for Local Council Clerks, and we're supported by the National Association of Local Councils. So in terms of community and or council and community climate action, the council bit's really important because we can do a lot as councillors to support our communities to be able to take action. And conversely, our community can really help our town and parish councils by providing energy, momentum, support, and most importantly, capacity to be able to go and do things. I'm sure everyone here understands, those that are on a parish council anyway, that often we're time poor with volunteers, and capacity is a key thing. So we'd all probably like to do more, but as a parish town or parish council, we often have responsibility for provision of allotments. We can look at access to land for food or biodiversity and creating food resilience. We also have a statutory biodiversity duty to consider local nature-based recovery strategies in our decision making. And many of you might have had the joy of creating an emergency plan, which is again an obligation that we've got to do. Primarily, that's generally been around things like a plane crash or a comet hitting or other major disasters. But right now, it's very much becoming, what do we do if it floods? What if our food can't get through? Where do we go if it's really hot? We have excess deaths. Where are the cool places? Where are the warm places? This kind of thing. And so we're working with resilience forums around the country, in particular in Sussex, looking at food resilience, paid or funded by Sussex Police because they don't want to police food riots. So we integrate emergency planning from a parish level with resilience forums, community risk registers, and, as I just touched on, funding and finance. So I've got a duplicate slide in there just to show you all the lovely logos again. Probably only unintentional. And then, so what does a workshop look and feel like? Well, they're fast-paced, participatory and interactive. And we invite our community of anchor institutions, residents and businesses to collaborate to come and write a plan together. Every journey starts with a map, and planning is essential. So we write a plan to build resilience and adapt to the changes that are here. I mentioned the wettest September for the last 100 years. I think it's probably the driest September we'll know for the rest of our lives. So this approach ensures the plan is written by the community, for the community, grassroots, ground up, and builds capacity in the community with leaders and volunteers stepping forward to enact the plan moving forward, because that's the most important thing. We can write a plan, that's brilliant, and if it sits on a shelf, it's no good. It needs to be enacted. And where we are, we started with 3 parishes and we grew from 3 to 6 to 9 to 10, because I came back from one workshop and my colleague Andrew Goodall from Hinderclay Parish Council, who I hadn't met before, was literally waiting for me with a pint down the pub. Hi, we're Hinderclay Parish Council, we want to join in. So what we do is we explore shared values. There's more that connects than divides. So we look at our values and everybody gets a vote, and we see which values should float to the top. And this is primarily to take the isms out of it. It's a non-partisan issue, and one of my joys recently was working with, as a member of the Labour Party, working with a Green district councillor and a Conservative county councillor. And our team name was Red, Green and Blue, and that was suggested by the Conservative councillor. And we cracked on together, and we were looking at planning. So we look at our shared values. The lady in the wheelchair here you can see is our chair, Lorraine, the chair of our parish council. And Jennifer next to her is 87 and has lived in our village for 60 odd years. And she said she hasn't had so much fun joining in our community climate action workshop since she used to go to the WI. So again, the WI is the kind of institution that we would invite, and we would love to participate. And we explored what was around us in terms of stakeholders, and this is our community climate action stakeholder map, the joy of post-it notes. And we left it up in our pub over the weekend, and actually quite a lot of people just went, you've forgotten a bit, or you've missed a bit, and just added to it over the weekend. And we drew that out, so we know what's around us, we know who's involved, and we record it in posterity, and we create a database or contact list that sits behind that. And we also look at what institutions we need to work outside of our immediate geographical area. So some for us would be the University of Suffolk and their Sustainability Institute, West Suffolk College, this kind of thing in terms of training our young people. And we explore, what do you need to be well? What does health and well-being feel like for you? And for me, probably a pub, somewhere to have a beer and set the world to rights, some green space to get out and have a walk, possibly somewhere to grow some food, do some horticulture and cultivation. So we map out what community resilience and well-being feels like for our community. So at the end of this section, we know we agree all of our shared values. We agree what health and well-being feels like and what community resilience feels like, and also our stakeholders who needs to be involved in the process. And then we build on that with a GROW methodology, which is goal, reality, options, and who. So under a theme of food, a project might be an allotment, for instance, because you know when it's done. And we've run through that with on housing and all of the various bits that we looked at. And this is what came out of the housing one, for instance, predominantly retrofitting. And we've got some very active people in the community. Tom, who's retired and a Geordie, turned up literally with all his bills, having done his own energy audit already, and was super keen to lead on that. Andrew, who I just mentioned, he's an ornithologist, he's leading on the biodiversity bit. But we know we've got 550 homes in the village. 84% of those, this is in my parish, 84% of those are band D or below, and probably could do with some retrofitting. So it starts to give an indication of the scale of the challenge. If we did 3 a month for the next, it would take us 13 years just to do those. So this is our green cluster, and you can see at the table, the guy to the back to us with his red shirt is Andrew from my neighbouring parish council of Hinderclay. And going around the table, there's 6 or 7 other parish councils represented there, and some green groups, and we have businesses as well. And we've got community climate action groups starting around the country. The food resilience workshop I mentioned is down on the south coast in Worthing, and that's with a climate action group down there called Worthing Crew. And Worthing Crew are also a climate emergency centre. And we're also, our community benefit society is also part of the climate emergency centre network. And we've bought 10 acres of land. We've got 4 acres of fen for protection and conservation, and limited market gardening and cultivation. This is Dave, who's a forest school teacher and a barman, and you'll hear a little bit about Dave later. And we cleared loads of rubbish off the land, tons and tons of metal and plastic. We're now growing some food. We've got 53 regular volunteers drawn from a very small community. And we've also purchased our local pub as a community pub, with the aspiration of being the greenest pub in Suffolk, and maybe further. So we're covering it in what Dave, who you saw a moment ago, would call green science. So that's solar PV, air source heat pumps, external wall insulation, and new windows and doors. Primarily, this acts as an exemplar. And everybody in the community, or majority of people in the community, are invested in it, so they're really interested in how we save money. That's some of the team at the White Horse, and part of our management committee taking a vote. So Sir James Bevan, Chief Executive of the Environment Agency, said Climate change plus growth is an existential threat to our economy, our environment, our security, our happiness, and our way of life. And we can choose to ignore this problem, or we can choose to tackle it. And I'm betting that you're all here because in this room, because you think the second approach is preferable to the first. So I'm going to leave you on another quote before we go to Q&A. So walk with the dreamers, the believers, the courageous, the cheerful, the planners, the doers, the successful people with their head in the clouds and their feet on the ground. And let their spirit ignite a fire within you to leave this world better than when you found it. So I invite you all to join the great collaboration. Thank you. And I'll stop right there and take some questions.
I can start with a question. Do you think that the lack of regulation of the EPC market is going to cause an issue?
It depends what you mean by cause an issue.
Well, I can tell you, because I work in property, and having done a low energy house and having it rated properly, we ended up with a B, which is fine because it wasn't a passive house. But lots of passive houses get Bs instead of As because the EPC still marks them down for having electric central heating. So if you look at EPCs, the irony is putting a heat pump in will lower your EPC rating. And the lack of regulation in the EPC market, excuse me, means that you know, and I see it a lot with letting agents, people can pay their money and get whatever rating they like because there's no one coming in to check that people are giving out the correct ratings.
So in answer to your question, is it a problem? Yes. I mean, EPCs aren't fantastic. I've got various colleagues I work with are actually EPC assessors and retrofit assessors and what have you. I guess so. Yeah, it's not ideal, and that will require action from the government to be able to fix that. So community climate action is about what we can do from grassroots, grassroots ground up. So we're not really set up to lobby the government to change legislation. But yes, I do appreciate some of the challenges, certainly with retrofitting and energy efficiency. I'm sorry, couldn't be more specific. I should have had Lara on the call because she is an EPC assessor on our team, and she would have given him a bit more of an insight. I'm less of an expert on EPCs. So.
I see EPCs being used a lot as a measurement of how energy efficient homes are. And the reality is they're a very, very poor measure of how energy efficient homes are. I get with what you were saying earlier, that if you see there are a lot of houses in an area that are rated an F, then yes, you know there's a problem. But in terms of marking the homes that have made an A or a B rating, they're quite a poor mark. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't disagree with you. So we're having some new homes built in our village at the moment, and I asked the developer what rating they would be, and he replied somewhere between A and C. Didn't know. And they've got air source heat pumps, but no solar PV to power them. So I suspect they'll be quite expensive for the residents.
But I've also seen new builds that friends of mine were buying that I was told would be an A-rated APC and EPC, and I walked around and the standard of construction, there's no way that they were going to meet the requirements, but they had determined they were going to be an A before air testing or anything. So anyway, I've spoken about EPCs. I think we're on the same page on that.
We are absolutely, and in terms of energy efficiency advice and keeping people warm, often it is. I think fuel bills are going up by about 10% this winter. Winter fuel payments being cut. There'll be loads of vulnerable and elderly people in our communities that probably, again, will be faced with that stark choice of heating or eating. So some of it is really as basic as radiator reflectors, draft exclusion, heating one room, turning thermostats down, and those kinds of activities. But then equally, if we can look at district heating, for instance, larger scale heat pumps and community renewable energy, we can both save energy, because the cheapest energy is no energy, but also produce it as well to keep our communities warm.
I mean, a final comment, but I do think there is a real hole in the market for people who have the knowledge to advise people on how to retrofit homes, because I see so many people coming in saying to me, "Oh, should I get an air source heat pump?" And they have a house that it just wouldn't help them at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think a lot of people who are putting in EWI and things like that, the people installing it don't really understand the detailing of it. And yeah, I think there are a lot of issues in education and access to installers and access to the correct information, as opposed to just people who want to sell you a heat pump.
Absolutely. So we've got some funding from UK Power Networks, our district network operator, to offer energy efficiency advice to households in our area. That actually extends. I'm not quite sure if your DNO is UKPN, but that's something we could probably tap into. And yes, and I'm just doing my NEA training to get a bit more up to speed on that, so I can actually deliver that impartial, free kind of advice. But you're absolutely right in terms of that gap. So there is an opportunity for people on the call and our community to actually help fill that, and give people the right advice. So I think Surinder, are you next or first? So.
Hi, thank you. This is really inspiring. I'm not quite clear how your organization works. Do you come and help people run workshops? Do you run workshops for people? Do people get trained in your particular style of workshop? So as our community action group have run workshops in the past, but we're always interested in understanding new skills about how to work, how to run workshops more, with better outcomes. Yeah. So how does, do we join you? How does it work?
Sure. The proposition here is that we will come and deliver a workshop. Originally, it was myself and Rachel talking about Western Turville, the parish of Western Turville. That's then broadened to Wendover and villages. So I think primarily the discussion here is for us to come and deliver a workshop, support with the promotion and getting all of the respective people there. And then having created a sort of top level strategic plan, then support over a period of 12 months with the delivery of that. We are just putting together kind of course content to train the trainer. So we are really interested in those that might be interested in learning how to deliver our workshop methodology and all of the supporting elements that then go with that. Because I've only got one pair of hands and we've got a team, but how do we scale? How do we do this quickly? And we've got an unmanageable wait list now of parish councils. So we're applying to the National Lottery for sort of larger funding to be able to scale, to be able to meet those kind of needs. So it's in the first instance, we're really here to talk about coming and delivering a workshop. And seeing how we can kickstart activity, getting those anchor institutions and town and parish councils and residents involved. And then beyond that, Surinder, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about, prospective training and this kind of thing.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Maybe it's a useful time to sketch in what our ideal schedule was. We've already got a community event on the 12th of October in Western Turville, which is billed as an eco-family fun day, and there'll be lots of activities, some for children and a lot for adults as well, in terms of different suppliers and installers talking about retrofits and renewables, and different talks about different aspects of energy improvement. Joolz will be there and be giving more talks in and around this sort of topic. After that, we'd sort of penciled in a date for the 16th of November where we were hoping that we could convene a workshop for our Wendover Villages community. But that may be optimistic. It rather depends on the response of the different parish councils that are attending this evening. And we'd really be interested to get your feedback as to whether that is a viable date to start this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a busy November because we've been contracted by Essex County Council, and we're delivering kick-off workshops for 3 different communities in Essex as well. But we've penciled in that date, and subject to feedback from this evening's meeting and questions or clarifications, may be able to do something for it, but it may be a little ambitious. But in terms of timing, because we generally need about 6 weeks lead time to just for promotion, to get it in people's diaries, this kind of thing. Beyond that, it starts to become December, and not the best of time because people start slowing down towards Christmas and thinking about Christmas. So, but obviously it'll be a consultative process, and we'll see who might want to actually participate or come and join in. So, any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm guessing. Oh, sorry, Surinder, that the people here will, from your different parish councils in Wendover Community Board, will need to go back and discuss with the rest of your parish council before being able to come to a conclusion. Was there anything more you wanted to say on that? Anyone, Clive or Darren or Sarah?
I mean, as Wendover, we've already had a very brief discussion at our meeting that we had on Tuesday, and we have already declared a climate emergency as a parish council. So this is very much something that we're interested in, and sitting here listening to what Joolz is saying, it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm just struggling as I think about it, because the importance of it, I'm worried about November because we've got many other things that we're all dealing with, and then we get into Christmas. But at the same time, I'm sitting here thinking it's not something I necessarily want to put off. That makes complete sense. So I think the general view from our councillors is that we would be supportive of this initiative, and would be willing to participate in a workshop. But yeah, the timing may be challenging, if I'm being very honest.
Thanks, Clive. I totally agree. It would be short lead time, and people, as you say, will maybe have other things already arranged. But equally, I also feel you, because it is urgent. It's really urgent, and there's a certain element of urgency to climate planning and what have you. But we'll, like I say, we'll take a collaborative approach, and it might be better in spring. We could also do something early December, but I'm not so sure. Not sure pre-Christmas is fantastic. So. But thank you. Anyone else got any feedback? It doesn't have to be in the form of a question, ideas, suggestions, or just thoughts on what you've seen today. Surinder again.
Hi, I just wanted to check with people, how far might we be able to share this video? I know that I would like to share it with other councillors on, for instance, Risborough Town Council, and I'm also a member of another organisation that has more contacts through Buckinghamshire who might find this video really interesting.
Okay, thank you. I can't speak for people on the call, so I will probably leave it to Rachel to coordinate. And if anyone is uncomfortable with it being more widely shared to other councillors, I would suggest either pop something in the chat now or contact Rachel at a later date.
Thank you.
That sounds amazing. Obviously, the more we share it, the more we can get done. So yes, just let me know if you object, and then we can go ahead and share it with Bucks Community Action Alliance, etc.
I'm also really pleased to hear, Clive, that you've declared a climate emergency. not so many parish councils I've met have actually declared. Most, I think, a very large proportion of district and counties have, but fewer parish councils. So delighted to hear that. So also this might be, I don't know what the time, how we're doing for time is, but also if you've got interesting things that you've already got, interesting initiatives in your area and this kind of thing, feel free to mention. Always interested to learn. We've probably got about 5 minutes, and we'll wrap it up.
Can I just say thank you to you and your council support, Clive, at this moment. I'm kind of overjoyed by that.
There's just a message in the chat as well. So Hugo from Halton Parish Council has also asked for a copy of the video. So I suggest probably what I could do, Rachel, is upload it and maybe password protect it or similar. So it's not depending on, it could be public, but initially password protect it, I think, and then you can distribute the link and the password to everyone that's on the call, and they can distribute as they see fit, something like that.
Sorry, I can't figure out how to put my hand up, so I'm going to have to physically do it.
Cool. Nice one, Michelle.
You may have mentioned this because I jumped on the call a little bit later. So I am the community board manager for Wendover and Villages. What I just wanted to know was, how do you try and engage with the residents to be able to get them along to the workshops? Like, what is your process in terms of that? Because I think that's probably one of the key bits that we need to do, because for the people that are here are already engaged with the process. We want the other people that aren't engaged to be part of it. So how would you envisage doing that? Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. It's a really good question. The hard to reach and the disengaged. How do we get to speak to them? Where we are often over a pint. So that's a great starting point for our farming community. We have meet-up Mondays at our pub, so that's an older generation. But primarily, we would look to go into our anchor institutions that have both a value proposition and an audience. So to put that in plain English, a value proposition, sport. I love playing football, but I can't play because it's flooded.
Yeah.
And so we would flyers through letterboxes, press releases, social media support on town and parish council, district or county websites. I mean, it's pretty traditional stuff. We're not necessarily reinventing the wheel in terms of marketing. And it's kind of friend get a friend, so through conversations. But there's a thing called the diffusion of innovation bell curve, goes like that kind of thing, and it's the same for any new product innovation service, same for the iPhone, etc. You've got about 2.5% of innovators, 3.5% of early adopters, and then what we want to try and get to is the early majority. And that's where we are at the moment, is the innovators and the early adopters. And we got about 5% of our population generally attending, which is enough for a mandate for action, because everybody's invited. So, if you don't attend a meeting, you generally don't get a say, but that we also do follow-ups generally to ensure it's a participatory and deliberative process, to allow people to object or change the plan. It's a mutable thing, moving forward. But more often than not, so, the school will have a bunch of flyers given to the kids will all take them home to their parents. Don't know about you, but whenever I've spoken to any kids, they're pretty terrified. And my partner is a primary school teacher, and just some of the pictures the kids draw are heartbreaking. And part of what we do is with community climate action in schools is actually also project-based inquiry-led learning, for less teaching climate science, because that just leaves people just in doom and gloom, but teaching agency and what we can actually do and how we work on this together. But primarily it would be, you're picking up the phone to the sport clubs, the schools, going in, bundling flyers, getting people to take them home, door drops, and posters, around post offices and pubs and this kind of thing. And for anyone with a pub, there is a thing called People Planet Pint. and it's a charity called Small 99, and you can sign up and you can have a no death by PowerPoint, no presentation, no agenda conversation over a pint, and the first 30 pints are free. So I hope that helps, Michelle, and answers the question. Yeah.
We have one in Wendover, a people, Plight and Planet, so you come along to.
Oh, brilliant. There we go. I'm a big fan.
I'll get 3 pints.
Up again, or
King and Queen.
yeah. Surinder, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, me again. Out of interest, a friend of mine lives in Essex, and they're curious to know what community groups you're working with there. What areas in Essex?
Oh, cool. Whereabouts is your friend?
What, Leon C?
Leon C. I don't particularly know the geography of Essex as well as I might. I'm in Suffolk and Norfolk. I'm physically in Norfolk right now, but it's Toppersfield, East Hanningfield, and Great Dunmow that we're kicking off with. And one of my colleagues, actually, who was due to be on this call, but I don't think she could make it, she's founder and trustee of PACE in Manningtree. That might be a bit closer.
All right, thank you. That's great.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts or anything else before we dive off and close up?
Over to you, Dave.
Just want to say an enormous thank you to you, Joolz, for what's a really inspiring talk this evening, which has given us all, I'm sure, a lot of things to think about. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your future commitment, which you've already expressed through coming along to our next event on the 12th of October. Rachel's keen to get as much feedback from everybody who's attended tonight, so you have her email address. If you could get in touch with her and let her know any thoughts that you have, it will really help us going forward planning what our future schedule is. So thank you all.
Yeah, I'm delighted to see so many people on the call. Brilliant discussions, and look forward to meeting you in person, particularly Rachel and David. I'll see you on the 12th. That'll be fun.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Joolz, and everybody for coming along. Look forward to seeing you, a lot of you, on the 12th.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, everyone. And yeah, if anything springs to mind after the fact, get in touch with Rachel, or she'll put you in touch directly with me. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Many thanks.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.